Well, I'll give you guys a rundown of what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do a stuffed shrimp, and we're going to do, it's going to be stuffed with some crab, some king crab, and we're going to do a little bit of a saffron sauce with that. We'll finish these off in the oven. So what we're going to do is make the stuffing, put it in the shrimp. I'll show you guys how to make a little cool stuffed shrimp, and then bake those off, and then we'll finish off a little bit of a saffron sauce, a really light sauce. I'm also going to do, since I got more crab than I need, and it's a big piece of crab. I'm going to do a real quick, and this is sort of an Asian soup actually. It's a crab and corn soup. Real fast. I use cornstarch to thicken it, and some good flavors in that. And then I'm also going to do a stuffed pork loin. And it's not the tenderloin, it's just the loin, and we're going to stuff it with sauteed apples. And then we're going to do some sauteed spinach and some garlic mashed potatoes. Yeah. So I will get started. Let's see here. The shrimp, you want to use the larger shrimp, and these are nice because they already come, deveined and cut. And the only thing you want to leave on is just a little bit of the tail, because it's going to make it a little prettier in the presentation. And get a couple of these cleaned off. And you guys feel free to ask any question you want as I'm going. You're more than welcome to. Sure. What kind of food do you guys like? Like it all? Good. Well, you came to the right town. Vegas has definitely turned into a food town, hasn't it? And when I first came here, which is 15 years ago, it was the Swedish meatball and cube cheese town. It was not known for its food, and then all these wonderful chefs, moved into Vegas, and it's a great thing.
You just came from Caesar's Palace.
Uh-huh.
We went and saw those restaurants.
Where did you eat there?
Well, we didn't get to eat there yet. We just kind of walked around before we came here.
Uh-huh.
We just saw this different way of, developing the different types of food.
Oh, it's just changed so much. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to steal, this is going to be for my roasted garlic, but we can steal one clove for this dish. Actually, I'll show you how I'm going to do the roasted garlic now. Let me get that going. Roasted garlic, I just want to cut off the tops. And put in a dish like that. We'll come back to this in a minute. I just need to get it going so it's ready for our garlic mashed potatoes. If I'm doing a whole bunch of roasted garlic, sometimes I'll put it out for an appetizer. I'll serve it with croutons, and I'll do a side of feta cheese and pesto melted, and just let people scoop it out like pate. And if I'm doing a whole bunch, I just use a cupcake pan. And then you've got the oil left over you can use as a garlic flavored oil. Just set that in there. Let that go, and now I've got a little bit of garlic I can use for my dish on the top here. Get that roaring. This is a dish that I was traveling up in the Northwest, and another chef I met, his name was John as well, and he showed me this dish, and I always thought it was a pretty good one. Be worth sharing with you. They got so much seafood up there. That's all I ate. Every chef I met, I ate like salmon 10 times in 1 week. At the point I didn't even like salmon by the time they were done with me. It's like, oh, salmon again. Now, the nice thing about Alaskan king crab is the shells are really soft, so they're pretty easy to take apart. You can either just keep breaking it into the different joints, and then almost any knife will go through it. Make sure you go down, otherwise you might stab yourself. So make sure you're pushing your knife away from you, and that your hands are very far away. And the meat just comes right out, like that. And there usually is a piece of, it's almost like cartilage. You just want to check through, make sure. It'll sometimes get pulled out when you undo the joint, but just make sure there's nothing hard in there. And usually when I have nice, big, beautiful pieces of crab like that, I don't want to chop it, but in this case we're going to have to. Well, it's actually the nature of the beast. You know, they go out in these giant boats, and then sometimes they go out for quite a while, and they have to freeze it. If you can get fresh Alaskan king crab, you're very lucky. But it's one of those seafoods that does freeze well. That, cod, and orange roughy are about the only, and shrimp. You know, shrimp almost. Sometimes shrimp they'll go out for 6 months, so of course they have to freeze them, otherwise they'd have rotten shrimp when they got back. Dice some garlic here. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. It's not too hot when we get it going. And I also want to do an onion. It doesn't really matter what onion you choose. A lot of times, you know, my recipes tend to be what I have in the fridge. You know, it's often how I cook. A lot of people get very frustrated when they come over and they say, "What are you making for dinner?" And I say, "I don't know." And they go, "What are you talking about? You're cooking. How could you not know?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to change my mind. I'm sure of it." And I will. I'll change my mind a couple times. I'll open the fridge and go, "Oh," and the dish will go a totally different direction. I haven't really cooked under any other chefs, so everything I've done after culinary school has been pretty much my own imagination.
Is there a special technique to cutting it really fast?
Yeah, I mean that's the best way not to cry if onions bug you. You know, your knife skills are the most important thing, and if you the sharper your knife, the easier it is, of course, to slice, and then the thinner you slice it. You really don't need to do the cross. It's just not necessary because you've got rings in the onion, so it naturally breaks into little pieces. I'm pretty much immune to crying from onions. They just don't seem to bother me a bit. Get some garlic in there. So we got a little bit of pork. The Alaskan king crab tends to be a very sweet crab, but it also tends to have some salt in it. So it's one of those things when you're cooking with it, make sure you add your salt at the end so you haven't over-salted it. And I'm also going to use a little bit of saffron. You guys familiar with saffron? It's more expensive than certain other things. You don't need a ton of it. And it gives a nice color to a sauce, and also it's a pretty unique flavor. Oh, now the onions are getting to me. I spoke too soon. So we're going to pretty much try to get a little bit of caramelization on our onions, pull out the sugars, make them nice and sweet. I spoke too soon about those onions. I haven't gotten affected by onions in months. It's funny, sometimes the onions that are really sweet will be the ones that get you in the eyes, you know. My dad is very, very sensitive to them. He was always like, "Can you chop the onions?" When you do curries, you do tons and tons of onions, you know. He'd leave me 10 to do. Now on the shrimp, I pretty much got the shells off to the tail. And what you're going to do is, what you want to do is butterfly them. In essence, what we want is, we want to cut them in half, but leave it attached all the way up to the end. And you'll see why we're doing that in a second. Another nice thing about shrimp is they cook really fast, so if you don't have a lot of time or guests show up, they're always good to have in the freezer because you can defrost them real quick and get a dish going. Okay, I'm going to have my crab now. I just want to break that up just a little bit. And I got a little half and half. You can use half and half for cream. And I'm putting this in for two reasons. One, it's going to absorb with the breadcrumbs and hold the breadcrumbs together for our stuffing. And two, it tastes good. These are panko breadcrumbs. You guys familiar with that? They're the Japanese style. Yeah. I almost always use panko if I'm doing like a breaded fish or anything. They just really crisp up great. Okay, I'm going to turn the heat off now. So now we got our stuffing. And it's got the onions, the garlic, a little bit of olive oil in it, and then it's got the half and half, so we know it's going to be nice and moist. Huh? Smells good? Getting you guys going? I'm going to just put a little bit of olive oil on our sheet pan here.
So do you have the recipe, like the actual recipe on the website?
Yes, with each video is the recipe, so you can get your ingredients, then you can watch the recipe, as many times as you need to all the way through.
I haven't seen the website yet, but is it like a membership?
No, you don't have to join to see it, but what we do is sell the recipes individually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they range from $1 to $2.99, so they're pretty reasonable. So you got your stuffing like that, and you place it like this. We'll make a ball. This is definitely an appetizer. I mean, you could do 4 or 5 of them, and see if we get that tail to poke up there so it looks nice. It comes out even. You could do 4 or 5 of them per dish. A little pasta in the middle, with some vegetables, and it definitely could be an entree as well. And there's something you can make ahead of time too. So you can make the stuffing and put them on a sheet pan, and then when your guests arrive, you just throw them in the oven. And the only thing is when they're cold, they go from cold to say this situation, you're probably going to want to do a little bit lower of an oven temperature. I got the oven at 400 right now. But if you're going to bring them up to temperature, you want the inside stuff to warm up a little bit slower before the shrimp really gets going. Pretty easy, huh? You can already tell what couldn't taste good in this, right? Yeah. A couple more there. And actually, if you end up with more stuffing than you need, this stuffing you can freeze. You can throw it in a little plastic container or stuff something else with it another time, or next time we do some shrimp.
Could you use this one for like fish, like sole?
Oh yeah, roll with sole. We used to do a dish in culinary school all the time where we take the sole and with the stuffing like that, and you roll it, and then place it in the pan. Put 3 or 4 of them with a little bit of white wine and shallots. Steam it, in essence, take it off, then finish it with make a beurre blanc out of it. It comes out great. They love to stuff things in culinary school. Everything's stuffed, and I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil on these. Man, I got a 400-degree oven. You guys can probably smell the garlic roast in there by now. And it is roasted. Those won't take too long. And I'll the rest of that stuffing out. It's okay if we got some stuff in there. It'll come out in the sauce and add a little bit of flavor. Go ahead and do some saute a little bit more onion. Just a tiny bit of olive oil. We don't want too much oil in this because now we're making a sauce. So if we've got the oil in there, it might break the sauce. We'll clean up there. On this dice, I'm just going to go a little bit finer. You have a choice. There's a piece of equipment called chinois, or it's a strainer. In essence, you could strain your sauce if you want to. The French don't like anything in their sauce. They like the cleanness, no lumps type sauce. Personally, I don't care. It just doesn't bug me one bit. But for the ease, you just do a little bit thinner of dice, and you'll have a little bit smaller pieces for the sauce. It's a little bit of Madeira. And we use a little bit more saffron. This will also color our sauce nicely. Good, nice light yellow sauce. Stuff's like gold, dude. Actually, there was a time that saffron was more expensive than gold, but gold's gone up in price a lot lately. Now, this point, you want to turn down your heat, and when you're adding cream or something to a hot pan, you have to do it all at once so that it doesn't have a chance to break. Or if you have some liquid in the pan, you can add that to the cream. Like I mean, let's say there was more liquid. By just adding the onions to this, I've tempered it. I brought it up to temperature so that now it's warmer. So when it hits the pan, it won't break. Actually, I'm going to need a little more half and half. Enough sauce to go around. Have a look at our shrimp. They're doing pretty good. Let's need a couple more minutes. And actually, it's only two of you guys, so I'll do three. No paper plates today. Of course, plates they make all the difference in your food. You know, it gives something, another aspect of how the food looks. I often go out to the flea market, and you know, if you only need 4 or 5 one plate, another, it's a great place to go and get variety.
Yeah, we like cool looking plates.
There's a lot of good Asian stores out here. We have like a Costco, an Asian Costco out here. It's called International Market, and they have a lot of that is Decatur and Tropicana. Now, this being the case, I did break my sauce, so I'm going to show you guys how to bring sauce back together. Hopefully, what you want is a little bit of cold water. If you look at it, you can see it almost looks like curdled cheese.
Okay.
You see it? And that you know it's broken. Now, if I had used heavy cream, odds are it wouldn't have happened because I thought I had cream and I didn't, so I used the half and half. So what I usually do is put a little bit of cold water in there, and it's one of those things, if you can get some of it combined, usually the rest will combine. You could also use a, an actual blender. Yeah, it's a heat. I mean, when you have a sauce, you're combining in essence fat and protein and water. And if anything goes wrong, you can get what looks like curdled cheese, and it happens all the time with hollandaise as well, or any of the butter sauces. And then the other thing we want to do is put it into a fresh pan, and that way because that could actually bring it back to what's left in this pan, can bring a broken sauce back being broken. This is combined now. Now, if you want to go sure thing, you can always do a little bit of cornstarch and water. If you really want to, or a roux, if you really want to make sure your sauce isn't going to break. If I do a buffet or something like that, I almost always do a roux-based sauce because it can be sitting out there for hours on that. Our shrimp. Now, this would be a good time to taste your sauce. Make sure you've got enough salt, and we got little spoons in here. It definitely needs salt. That's about all it needs. Usually go for the center plate. Let the sauce or the pasta or whatever it is that you're plating, it'll find its way. If you go for the center, you're less likely to, make a mess on the side. You don't have to do as much cleanup. Some nice looking basil here. Thanks to Jerry. It's about as fresh as it gets. Clean out the rest of this crab. Now, this claw was almost a pound, and the price was $12. Now, if you go to, especially like Costco and stuff, they'll have blackfin crab that's in a can. You can get a whole pound of clean crab for the same price. So that's also another good option if you're not eating the crab with, say, drawn butter, which is like pure crab and couldn't get any better. If you're going to do something else with it, there's no reason to necessarily spend all that money. You'll get 3 or 4 times the amount of crab for the same price. That's good. It's a good product. I wouldn't use imitation crab, but nice thing about it is it's so easy to clean. can also use scissors. They work pretty well too. Or shears. Do a little more sherry in there. Sorry, I meant Madeira. Any booze you got handy, just throw it right in there. As long as you drink it, you can cook with it. This is shoe peg corn, which is white corn. I love shoe peg corn. I can eat it right out of the can.
Now is that fresh or?
Yeah, definitely use canned. Yeah, I mean you could definitely shuck the some fresh corn in it, but it just I just don't think you'll care. I don't. That's my personal opinion. But I love fresh corn on the cob, but for this it's more than fine. Hey.
A lot of restaurants they use like other than the main ingredient, a lot of it from cans or.
It really depends on the restaurant and how good something canned is. Green beans, never. Not in a million years. I don't know a chef with his salt would ever use green beans out of a can. But chefs will use canned peas. Or not canned peas, frozen peas. Because frozen peas are great, especially the little, petite peas. So it really depends on the ingredient. And some things you can really only get canned. I've never seen fresh hearts of palm in my life. Have you? There you go. A being the best? See, I don't work under any chefs, so I gotta get all this stuff sick.
Extra fancy is the best. When you go fancy, then if there's nothing.
I'm gonna use some shrimp bouillon for this dish. And if you go to some like the supply stores like Smart and Final stuff, they'll have a shrimp bouillon paste, and also you could use your shrimp shells. Save your shrimp shells, make a little bit of stock out of that. So every time you make something with shrimp, keep the shells. Throw them in the freezer in a Ziploc. Then when you're ready to do a dish, you can make a stock out of it. Well, it's going to give it a little bit of a shrimp flavor, but no, I mean that's what we want. We're doing a crab soup, so that's all right. And when I use bouillon or base, I usually use it as my salt. So if it needs more salt, I'll put more bouillon in, and that'll intensify the flavor while salting your dish as well. A little more water in there. And thicken it, I'm going to use some cornstarch. You always want to mix up cornstarch before you put it in anything, otherwise you'll get instantaneous lumps. I am going to use a little bit of soy sauce because I want the flavor of the soy sauce is the main reason. And it is salty, but also I like the flavor in there. So this is a good time to check the saltiness and the flavor of your soup. It's pretty good. Just a little pepper. You guys like spicy? And what we're going to do is finish it off at the last minute with the cilantro and the crab. You don't want the crab to stay in there very long. Mostly what's going to happen is all the flavor is just going to get pulled right out of the crab. And mix up our cornstarch. This is something you want to incorporate right before you. It'll clump back up in a few minutes if you leave it alone. So you just stir it up, make sure it's all combined. And I usually do like a third and let it boil. See how the thickness comes up. If I want it thicker, I'll just add a little bit more. It usually takes a couple minutes to get it to really combine. I can already tell you just a little bit more. See how that goes. This sort of gives it a velvety texture. You could also thicken it with a roux if you wanted to. Turn it down. Put this in there. We'll use a little bit for the garnish the last second. Once again, if you pour it right in the middle, you're not as likely to mess up your bowl. There we go. Just a little bit more. That's it. You guys want to try some? And as far as potatoes are concerned, I like them all. I mean, I cook with any potato. I've heard a lot of chefs, they have preference of this potato over that potato, but they all seem to come out pretty much the same to me. Yeah, garlic mashed potatoes or mashed potatoes, yeah, sure. I think the red news are better for you, and so are actually of all things, sweet potatoes are very low on the glycemic index, and they get into your system slowly. So they're one of the better potato to use if you want to be picky about it. What's that? Yeah, they're the best thing for a diabetic to eat is a sweet potato if they're gonna have a potato. Often I'll season them with a little bit of sugar-free maple syrup and a little bit of Parmesan cheese and some chicken bouillon. They come out great. Everybody goes nuts on them. So we got those boiling. Potato-wise, these are Fuji. If you used like a Granny Smith, they're a little tartar, so you're going to probably want to add some sugar to them, so might as well just use the Fuji to begin with. Just take the peel off it. Now it's one of those things, if you want, you can leave the peels on, but generally when I'm doing apples, I like to take the peel off. It's not the same as the potato. And we'll use the second potato for a little bit for our garnish at the end. Just you want to use some butter, because we want the browning ability of the butter and that toastiness, nuttiness of the butter also in there. Definitely salted. Yeah, I almost never use unsalted. I don't even know why they make unsalted butter. Let's say, what don't you put salt in? I don't even know the reason for unsalted butter. Well, have you ever forgotten to put salt in bread? You cannot eat it. It is impossible to eat a loaf of bread that doesn't have salt in it. And it's not much salt that goes in it, but it is abominable. The taste is just terrible. And do salt these a little bit. You know, we got salted butter. Pretty much the idea on this is just get them soft so that when we put them inside our pork loin. Oh, enough potatoes for you? Yeah. Well, the main reason that people tend to overcook pork is the belief that you have to overcook pork. And that goes back to a little worm that used to be in pork called trichinosis. And it's pretty much been bred out of any pork that you get in the United States. So you could eat pork raw and it's not going to hurt you. So it would just come down to just not thinking the way we used to about overcooking it, and just cook it less so it doesn't have a chance to dry out. And especially the loin this part is pretty lean, which means it doesn't have a lot of fat. There's a lot of fat in meat, like if you think about say a ribeye. You know, it's got fat all the way through it. It's almost impossible to dry out the ribeye because of the fat's ingrained, where there's some fat out on the outside. Now, tenderloin is really, really rare. I mean, lean. So there's almost no fat. So it's going to dry out even more so than the loin, more so than other cuts of pork. Now here what we're going to do is we're going to make a pocket. So you want a narrow knife. And you're going to poke it in right there. So that's where you're going in. And you're sort of going to have to imagine where your knife is because you can't see it. I mean, you can feel it. And let's get those done. Hold on a sec. And we're making a pocket. Now you could do other fruit. Like you could take the mixed dried fruit like apricots and figs, prunes, they make good. But you want to reconstitute it, so you cook it off a little bit. Never get to use that thing. Only costs $35,000. Should use it more often, huh? The most expensive thing in here never gets used very often. So you're pretty much just making a pocket on the inside. And this is two things. It's going to help, it's going to stop it from drying out as much because we've got the fruit in there that has moisture. And then also, it's actually sort of thinner. We're not trying to cook through the whole piece of meat. We're just trying to cook through this piece now when we put it in the pan. So just take some slices of your apple. And you're pretty much going to keep stuffing until there's no room left. Now if you want to do the tenderloin, which is like, long, you take your knife and you go straight down the center, then take a steel, you use to sharpen your knife, put the steel down and make the hole bigger, and then you can stuff it down so when you slice it, then you've got like a nice ring with the fruit in the center. It looks really nice. And that's definitely a good one for a party because you can stuff them way ahead of time, the day before if you wanted to. Keep them in the fridge, and then when you're ready to go, you just sear them off and finish them off in the oven. Now when I've got a little bit of the pork on there, you could, with the fat on there, you can trim it off, or you can sear it, which is going to add some flavor. The one thing about pork, like if you like carnitas, the caramelization of the fat is what tastes good. So for this dish, we're gonna leave the fat on, and we'll sear it first to get the flavor out of it. Fat's good stuff, huh? Yeah. Definitely addictive. So many things just taste so much better when you make them fat, and it's not even funny. Mother Nature's cruel joke on our tongue. Okay. When you cook meat, you really want to season both sides. If you're doing it on the grill, do like 3 or 4 times the amount of seasoning, because most of it's going to stay on the grill. So you might as well go to town on it. A little bit. Okay, what I'm going to do for now is I'm actually going to put the fat side down for a minute. Just let it caramelize that fat and melt it off. See how my potatoes are doing. Not quite, they're almost there. Now I get my spinach ready. The cooking of the spinach is the easy part. Spinach cooks really, really fast. So it's everything we're going to do before then is more important. A little butter, some mushrooms. I usually like to do nice thin sliced mushrooms for this. Need to get a knife sharpener in here. Have a look at the fat, see how it's doing. Nice caramelized, so now we can go ahead and finish off the meat on each side. See how our potatoes are doing. Still a little crunchy, so want those really soft. They'll just mash so much easier when they're nice and soft. As you guys probably noticed, I put alcohol and everything, so might as well do a little more, right? This is some pork.
Can we use the frozen spinach with that?
You could. What you're going to have to do, though, is that frozen spinach is going to be full of water. So first you're going to squeeze it out, and it's going to take a little longer to cook it. And it's going to take a little more oil. You might want to put some cream or more butter in it. Really what we're going to do with this spinach is we're going to wilt it. Where the chopped spinach or the spinach you get, frozen in a container, it's just a different beast altogether. It's not like, and it's a lot of spinach too, where this is a little bit of spinach that becomes a lot less spinach real quickly once it hits the heat. Come along good. I got a medium to high heat on that. Now, here's the roasted garlic. And pour the last of the oil out. Now, roasted garlic, the way I usually clean this is I just squeeze it all out. So since we capped it off, it's all caramelized. And just, whoops.
What?
That's not even the bowl I was shooting for. Well, you can see how well it works. All popped off into the butter. Just make sure you've got all the paper off it. And some of the cloves on the side you'll miss, and sometimes those get a little bit too hard. Just like that, it's not going to work. It's a little bit messy, but this stuff is so good, it's worthwhile going through the hassle. So there. Turn our spinach down. And I'm going to just cut up some more apple just so we've got something to garnish the plate with. And if you like cinnamon, you know, cinnamon is one of those spices that it smells sweet, but if you taste it, it's sort of bitter. That's why we always put sugar on it if we do, like, you know, cinnamon toast. It does work well on this, and you can do it on the pork as well. And fresh cinnamon is your best bet, but I should say fresh ground. It all comes dried. Pick our potatoes. Okay, they're soft enough now. We're just going to drain those. Just leave a little bit of water in there. Actually, I could have left the garlic in the butter because I was going to put that in there anyway. Chop up the garlic. Give these guys a quick turn. Turn our apples over as well. I want to get a little bit of that grease on the apple. That'll help saute them, put some nice color on them. I want to turn that down because the pork's just about where I want it. Should have a potato mash in here. Got this one at the flea market. Add garlic, salt, pepper, Parmesan cheese. Turn that off. What's that? Yeah, oh yeah. You definitely need to get a garlic flavor out of this. About where I want them. Also, if you want, instead of salt, you can use chicken bouillon. I often do that with my mashed potatoes. And I got some almonds here. And our spinach. Turn that back up. Splash of water just to get the steam going. Yeah, definitely. It's you can think of it like beef now. It's just fine if it's a little bit rare in the center. Well, beef. We always want rare because we know what we're doing.
And that's like typical throughout now, even when you buy the regular frozen.
Yeah, there's just no trichinosis in the United States. Has there been a case of trichinosis even 20 years or so? None? None. Yeah, really, it has drastically changed. Well, it's almost ingrained, into your psyche that there's something wrong with raw pork. I mean, it's like raw chicken. When you would not eat raw chicken, don't eat raw chicken because it's got the salmonella in it. But it doesn't mean that one day they may, get rid of salmonella in. There you go. You guys want to try some?